I, 26F, need outside perspective because I'm questioning everything about my 2-year relationship with Cole, 28M, after his mother Patricia, 54F, told me something that's completely shaken my trust. Cole and I have what I thought was a solid relationship. We met through friends, moved in together last year, and have been talking about engagement. The only thing that ever seemed off was how Cole sometimes gets this distant look, especially around certain dates or when specific songs play. When I ask, he just says he's remembering things and changes the subject. I've always known Cole's high school girlfriend Jenna died in a car accident when they were 18. He's mentioned her maybe 3 times in 2 years, always respectfully, never in a way that made me feel threatened. He said losing her was hard, but that he'd worked through it in therapy years ago. Patricia has never liked me. She's polite but cold, makes subtle digs about my career. I'm a graphic designer. She thinks it's unstable, and often mentions women from Cole's past who were so accomplished. I figured it was typical protective mother stuff. Last weekend at Cole's father's birthday party, Patricia asked to speak with me privately. She sat me down and said, "I think you deserve to know the truth about Cole and Jenna before you waste more time." What she told me was devastating. She said Cole visits Jenna's grave every few weeks, keeps a shrine to her in his bedroom closet, and has told the family multiple times that no one will ever compare to his first real love. She said Cole only dates women who remind him of Jenna somehow. Apparently, I have similar mannerisms and interests. The part that really got to me, Patricia claimed Cole keeps detailed journals about Jenna and writes letters to her regularly. She said he's told her he feels guilty being happy with someone else and that he's only with me because he's trying to move on but his heart isn't in it. Patricia finished by saying Cole will never fully commit to me because part of him died with Jenna. She said she wasn't trying to hurt me, but I deserved better than being someone's consolation prize. I was speechless. Patricia seemed to interpret my silence as confirmation and kept going, saying she'd noticed how Cole gets distant around Jenna's birthday and the accident anniversary, and that he's never introduced any girlfriend to his extended family except Jenna. The thing is, some of what she said actually makes sense. Cole does get withdrawn around certain times of year. He's never talked about introducing me to his aunts and uncles. And now that I think about it, he does seem to know a lot about art and music, interests Jenna apparently had. I spent the rest of the evening analyzing every interaction with Cole. When he asked if I was okay, I lied and said I was fine. I've never lied to him before, but I didn't know how to process what I'd heard. It's been 4 days and I can't stop obsessing. Every time Cole is affectionate, I wonder if he's thinking about Jenna. When he's quiet, I wonder if he's missing her. I keep looking for signs I missed. Does he really love me? Or am I just a Jenna substitute? The worst part is that I can't tell if Patricia was being malicious or genuinely trying to help me. She seemed sad when she told me, not vindictive. And why would she risk her relationship with Cole by lying about something so serious? But I also know Patricia wants us to break up. Would she really fabricate something this elaborate? Or has she been watching Cole struggle with unresolved grief and finally decided to let me know what I'm really dealing with? I'm terrified to confront Cole because what if it's true? What if I've been living in denial about being second choice to a dead girl? But I also can't continue this relationship with these doubts eating away at me. How do you even ask someone if they're still in love with their dead ex? And how would I know if Cole was being honest or just telling me what I want to hear? Edit. Some people are asking why I didn't shut Patricia down immediately. Honestly, I was so shocked that I couldn't respond. She presented it like she was doing me a favor by telling me something difficult but necessary. Edit 2. For those saying to just ask Cole directly. I'm scared of his answer. What if he admits it's true? What if he lies? I don't know how I'd be able to tell the difference. Update 3 days later. I couldn't take the uncertainty anymore, so I decided to do some investigating before confronting Cole directly. I know it sounds awful, but I needed to know if Patricia was telling the truth before I potentially blew up my relationship over lies. When Cole was at work yesterday, I looked through his apartment more carefully than I ever had before. I found a small box in the back of his closet that I'd never noticed. Inside were photos of Cole and a girl with dark curly hair, clearly Jenna. There were also some letters, a few small items like movie ticket stubs, and a bracelet. My heart sank. Patricia was right about him keeping Jenna's belongings. But as I looked closer, everything seemed old. The photos were faded, the letters were dated from 10 years ago, the items looked like typical teenage keepsakes. It didn't look like an active shrine, more like memory box someone might keep of any important relationship. I also checked Cole's browser history and social media. No recent searches for Jenna or her family. No mysterious social media activity. His Instagram and Facebook are full of photos of us together, and he posts about our relationship regularly. But then I found something that made my stomach drop. In Cole's notes app on his laptop, there were several entries that were clearly addressed to Jenna. They were dated sporadically over the past 2 years, some from before he met me, some from after. Reading them felt like a violation, but I couldn't stop. The entries weren't love letters exactly, but they were deeply personal. Cole writing about major life events, asking for Jenna's guidance, telling her about his struggles with anxiety and work stress. In a few entries he mentioned me, but not in a way that made me feel good about it. One entry from 6 months ago said, "I think I'm falling in love with Emma, but it feels different from what we had. Sometimes I wonder if I'm capable of that kind of all-consuming love again, or if that died with you. I feel guilty for being happy when you never got the chance to have any of this." Another entry from last month, Emma wants to talk about engagement rings. "I want to marry her, I think, but there's this voice in my head asking if I'm settling because I can't have what we had. Is it fair to marry someone when part of my heart is buried with you?" I felt sick reading these. Patricia was right. Cole is still emotionally entangled with Jenna. He might love me, but he's constantly comparing our relationship to theirs and questioning whether his feelings for me are real. When Cole came home, I tried to act normal, but I think he could tell something was wrong. He kept asking if I was okay, and I kept lying. I felt like such a hypocrite, being mad at him for not being emotionally honest while I was sitting on this huge secret. That night, I barely slept. Cole was right next to me, but I felt like I was sleeping next to a stranger. How long has he been having these doubts about us? How long has he been using a dead girl as his emotional confidant instead of talking to me? I don't know what to do now. I have proof that Patricia was telling the truth, but I obtained it by violating Cole's privacy. I can't confront him without admitting I snooped, but I also can't pretend I don't know what I know. Part of me wants to pack my things and leave without explanation. If Cole is questioning whether he's settling for me, maybe I should make the decision easy for him. But part of me thinks I owe it to our 2-year relationship to at least try to talk about this. I'm also furious at Patricia for putting me in this position. Even if she was right, there had to be a better way to handle this than dropping this bomb on me and leaving me to figure out what to do with the information. Edit. People are split on whether I should have snooped. I get that it was wrong, but I also don't think I could have gotten the truth any other way. Cole clearly isn't volunteering this information. Edit 2. To those saying Cole's journals are normal grief processing, maybe, but the entries questioning his feelings for me and wondering if he's settling don't feel like healthy grief to me. Update 5 days later. I decided I had to confront Cole, but I wanted to be strategic about it. Instead of admitting I'd snooped, I told him that Patricia had made some specific claims about his relationship with Jenna, and I needed to understand the truth before we could move forward. Cole's reaction was immediate anger, not at me, but at his mother. He said, "What exactly did she tell you?" When I mentioned the grave visits and keeping Jenna's belongings, he sighed and said, "Some of that is true, but not the way she probably made it sound." Cole admitted he does visit Jenna's grave occasionally, maybe 4 or 5 times a year. He said it's his way of processing difficult emotions and staying connected to that formative experience. He also showed me the memory box I'd already found, explaining that he'd kept it because throwing away those items felt like erasing an important part of his past. But when I asked about still having strong feelings for Jenna, Cole hesitated. That hesitation told me everything I needed to know. I pressed him, "Do you still love her?" Cole was quiet for a long time before saying, "It's complicated. I'll always love the memory of who she was and who we were together, but that's different from being in love with her now." That wasn't the clear denial I needed to hear. I asked, "Do you think about her when you're with me?" Another long pause. "Sometimes. Not in the way you're probably thinking, but yes, sometimes I think about how different my life might have been." I felt like I was pulling teeth to get honesty from him. Finally, I asked the question I was most afraid of. "Are you settling for me because you can't have her?" Cole looked genuinely distressed by the question. He said, "Emma, I love you. What I feel for you is real. But I can't pretend that losing Jenna didn't change me, or that I don't sometimes wonder about the path not taken. I thought those feelings would fade as our relationship got more serious, but they haven't completely." At least he was finally being honest. I asked if he'd been writing to Jenna, and Cole went pale. "How do you know about that?" I had to admit I'd looked through his things, which started a whole other fight about trust and privacy. Cole was hurt that I'd snooped, but he couldn't deny what I'd found. He said the journal entries were his way of processing complex emotions that he didn't feel comfortable sharing with me. He said he didn't want to burden me with his confusion about grief and love. I told him that hiding his doubts about our relationship was way more hurtful than being honest about them would have been. Cole said he'd been hoping his feelings would resolve themselves and that he wouldn't need to put me through this uncertain. We talked for hours. Cole swore that he wants to be with me and that he's committed to our relationship, but he admitted he doesn't know how to stop comparing what we have to what he had with Jenna. He said their relationship feels mythologized in his memory because it was cut short before they could experience normal relationship problems. Cole agreed to go to therapy to work through his unresolved grief, and he promised to stop writing to Jenna. He said he wants to choose our relationship fully, but that he needs professional help to get there. I told him I needed time to think about whether I could handle being with someone who's still emotionally connected to their ex even if she's dead. Cole said he understood, and that he'd do whatever it takes to prove his commitment to me. Edit. People are asking if I think Cole can actually change. Honestly, I don't know. I appreciate his honesty, but I'm not sure therapy can make someone stop loving their first loved. Edit 2. Some comments are suggesting I'm being unreasonable to expect Cole to just get over his grief. But this isn't just grief. It's active questioning of whether he wants to be with me. Update 3 weeks later. Cole started therapy and has been going twice a week. His therapist specializes in complicated grief and trauma. Cole asked if I'd be willing to do a few couples sessions to work through the trust issues, and I agreed. The couples therapy has been intense, but helpful. Cole has been more honest about his internal struggles than he ever was before. He admitted that he'd been afraid to fully invest in our relationship because losing Jenna taught him that people you love can disappear suddenly. His therapist explained that Cole had been unconsciously keeping one foot out the door emotionally as a protection mechanism. The constant comparison to Jenna wasn't really about still being in love with her. It was about avoiding the vulnerability of loving someone completely again. That made sense to me, but I was still hurt that Cole had been holding back for 2 years without telling me. Our therapist helped us work through communication patterns and helped Cole understand how his emotional unavailability had been affecting me. Cole also had an individual breakthrough about the journal writing. His therapist helped him realize that he'd been using Jenna as an emotional crutch to avoid processing difficult feelings in the present. Instead of talking to me when he was stressed or uncertain, he'd been retreating into this fantasy relationship with someone who couldn't challenge him or disagree with him. The hardest session was when Cole had to read some of his journal entries out loud and explain what he was really feeling when he wrote them. The entry about wondering if he was settling for me was actually about his fear that he wasn't capable of the kind of passionate, carefree love he'd had as a teenager, not about me being inadequate. Cole broke down crying and said, "I've been so afraid of losing you that I never let myself fully have you." And then I was confused about why our relationship didn't feel like what I had with Jenna. But what I had with Jenna was the kind of love you can only have when you're young and think you're invincible. That was a turning point for both of us. Cole started approaching our relationship differently, being more present, more emotionally available, more willing to be vulnerable with me instead of retreating into his grief. But we also had to address the Patricia situation. I was still angry that she'd manipulated me even if some of what she said was true. Cole was furious that his mother had violated his privacy and tried to sabotage our relationship instead of talking to him directly about her concerns. Cole confronted Patricia and told her that her interference had nearly destroyed our relationship. Patricia defended herself by saying she could see that Cole was stuck and that I deserved to know what I was dealing with. Cole told his mother that her concerns might have been valid, but her methods were manipulative and harmful. He said if she'd encouraged him to be more honest with me instead of trying to break us up, it would have been more helpful for everyone. Patricia seemed surprised that Cole was in therapy and working on his issues. She said she thought he would never address his grief on his own, and that she was trying to force the situation because she was worried about him. While I can understand Patricia's concern for her son, I still think her approach was wrong. She caused me weeks of anxiety and nearly destroyed my trust in Cole when she could have just encouraged him to get help or suggested couples therapy. Edit. Some people are asking if I trust Cole now. It's a work in progress. The therapy is helping and I can see real changes in how he approaches our relationship, but rebuilding trust takes time. Update 4 months later. Cole and I have made significant progress in therapy. He's been much more emotionally present and has stopped the journal writing entirely. Instead, when he's struggling with something, he talks to me or brings it up in our couple sessions. The biggest change is that Cole has started talking about Jenna in a healthier way. Instead of keeping her memory separate from our relationship, he's integrated his past into his present more honestly. He can mention her without it feeling like a threat to what we have. But I'll be honest, there have been setbacks. About 6 weeks into therapy, Cole had what his therapist called a grief spike around the anniversary of Jenna's death. He became withdrawn and distant for almost 2 weeks. The old me would have panicked and assumed he was having second thoughts about us. But this time Cole was upfront about what was happening. He told me he was struggling with anniversary reactions and that he needed some extra support from his therapist. He also asked me to be patient while he worked through it, which was way better than him just disappearing emotionally like he used to do. That experience actually made me more confident in our relationship because I saw Cole handle his grief in a healthy way instead of hiding from me. He didn't retreat into fantasy conversations with Jenna. He used his actual support system. Cole also did something that really showed me his commitment to our relationship. He decided on his own to visit Jenna's grave one last time to say goodbye to the fantasy relationship he'd been maintaining with her memory. He asked if I wanted to come with him, and I said yes. It was emotional but healing. Cole talked to Jenna's headstone about how grateful he was for their time together and how it had shaped him, but that he was ready to fully invest in his present life. He told her about me and our relationship and thanked her for helping him learn how to love someone. It might sound weird, but I felt like Cole was finally choosing me completely instead of keeping part of himself reserved for someone who was gone. As for Patricia, things have been complicated. She initially doubled down on her position that she'd been right to interfere. She kept saying she was just trying to protect both Cole and me from a relationship that wasn't going to work. But as months passed and she could see that Cole was actually doing better in therapy and that our relationship was getting stronger, she started to soften her stance. She never fully apologized, but she did admit that maybe there had been better ways to handle her concerns. The real test came when Cole and I got engaged 4 months ago. I honestly expected Patricia to object or make some comment about Cole not being ready. Instead, she congratulated us and said she could see how happy Cole is. But even then, she couldn't resist adding, "I'm glad you both worked through those issues." Like, she deserved credit for nearly destroying our relationship. Edit. People keep asking if I'm worried Cole will backslide. There's always some risk, but the work he's done in therapy feels genuine and lasting. He's developed better coping mechanisms and communication skills. Edit 2, for those asking about Patricia's role in our wedding. Honestly, we're still figuring that out. She's been better lately, but I don't fully trust her not to cause drama. Update, 8 months later. Our wedding was last weekend. I wanted to give one final update since so many people followed this story. Cole and I got married 6 days ago, and it was absolutely perfect. More importantly, it felt completely right. No doubts, no comparisons, no reservations. Cole was fully present and excited about our future in a way that felt genuine and lasting. Patricia's behavior at the wedding was interesting. She was polite to me and didn't cause any obvious drama, but I could tell she was struggling with something. During the mother-son dance, she was crying, and afterward, she asked to speak with me privately. I was honestly dreading whatever she was going to say, but what came out surprised me. Patricia said, "I owe you an apology. A real one. I've been watching Cole these past months, and I've never seen him this happy or this settled. I was wrong about what he needed, and I was wrong about you." She went on to say that she'd been so focused on Cole's grief that she couldn't see how much he'd actually grown and healed over the years. She said she thought he needed someone to match his depth of feeling about loss, but that she now realizes he needed someone to help him build a life focused on the present and future. Patricia admitted that her interference had been driven more by her own anxiety about Cole's happiness than by any real insight into what was best for him. She said watching him in therapy and seeing our relationship strengthen had taught her that love doesn't have to look the same way every time to be real and meaningful. It was probably the most honest conversation Patricia and I have ever had. I told her I appreciated the apology and that I understood her concern for Cole, even if I didn't agree with her methods. We're not going to be best friends, but I think we can have a respectful relationship going forward. Cole's continued progress has been remarkable. He rarely mentions Jenna anymore, and when he does, it's in the same way someone might reference any meaningful person from their past, with fondness, but without emotional charge. He's comfortable with the full intensity of loving me, and he stopped holding back emotionally. Our therapist said Cole's breakthrough was realizing that his love for Jenna had been frozen in time at its most intense teenage moment, while his love for me was allowed to grow and mature naturally. Once he understood that he could appreciate both relationships for what they were without needing to rank them. Looking back, I'm actually grateful this situation forced us to address these issues before we got married. If Patricia hadn't interfered, Cole might have continued struggling with unresolved grief indefinitely, and I might have spent years feeling like I was competing with a ghost. Even though Patricia's methods were wrong, she was right that Cole needed help working through his feelings. I just wish she'd encouraged therapy instead of trying to blow up our relationship. The experience taught me the importance of direct communication, even about difficult topics. Cole and I now have a policy of discussing anything that's bothering us within 24 hours instead of letting doubts fester. We're planning to continue occasional couples therapy as maintenance, especially as we navigate major life transitions. The tools we've learned for communication and emotional intimacy have made our relationship stronger than it ever was before. Cole sometimes thanks me for not giving up on him when things got complicated. But honestly, seeing him do the hard work of therapy and choose our relationship fully was what convinced me he was worth fighting for. For anyone dealing with a partner who's struggling with grief or unresolved feelings about past relationships, It's possible to work through it, but both people have to be committed to honesty and change. And sometimes outside help is necessary to break through patterns that people can't see on their own. Edit. This will be my final update. Thank you to everyone who followed our story and offered support. Cole and I are doing wonderfully as newlyweds, and we're excited about building our future together.